Visit to the state port in Wilmington is raising some concerns tonight. Cuban government officials took a tour with the U.S. Coast Guard, and 7th District Congressman David Rouzer calls that a national security risk, while the State Department says a visit like that is not unusual. WECT's Mara McJilton following this story for us tonight. Now, Mara, you're told visits like these have happened with many international visitors in the past.
Right, John. A spokesperson for the Department of State says this visit is part of the International Port Security Program, which allows officials to share things like port security best practices. But Congressman Rouzer says there's no reason any nation with a state sponsor of terrorism should be hosted by the U.S. And he added that sensitive information should not be shared with them either. The tour of the port was set up by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Department of State. I'm told the U.S. Coast Guard and Cuban Border Guard have had a relationship for decades that focuses on maritime safety. Still, Rouzer says this was clearly a national security risk and the visit should never have happened.
The shores of North Carolina's 7th Congressional District are used and enjoyed by its residents and countless tourists from across the country. It is our responsibility to ensure the security of our maritime borders, and our Coast Guard often serves as the first line of defense against these threats.
Now, as Rouzer expressed these concerns, a spokesperson for the Department of State sent a statement to WECT saying, quote, "We have communicated to Cuban officials that they cannot expect a substantially improved relationship with the United States without addressing human rights concerns. We have repeatedly called on the Cuban government publicly and in private to immediately and unconditionally release all political prisoners," end quote. Now, we've also reached out to the Coast Guard to get more details about this visit, but have not heard back yet. Mara McJilton, WECT News.